Well, hello again to all you folks out there in YouTube land. Now the topic for today is love. All you need is love. Okay, you remember the Beatles were singing that a while ago. And that's really true. And I'm gonna talk about love. I'm gonna try and cover all the bases. We're really going to go into it here and perhaps talk about what it's not and what it is. And we'll see where we end up. First of all, let me say what love is most fundamentally. Now, love, like everything else that is real, is a part of spiritual, what I often refer to as a spiritual dimension. And in the Christian tradition, God has been described as love. I think in all the other religious as well as spiritual traditions, love is also attributed to the divine. And I'm going to go even perhaps a step further at another little sort of thought, sort of angle on this. Love, to my understanding, and to the understanding of some of the teachings I've worked with, love is the creative force of the universe. And the Creator, the creative source, God, has created what we call creation, has created us, we are God's extension of creation, as an act of love and through love. So love is most fundamentally, it arises from the spiritual dimension. It comes from the Creator, who is love, and as God in our creation has given us what God has, what God is, we are love as well. In fact, my favorite teaching, the main one I have worked with for many years, called A Course in Miracles, says, among other things, teach only love, for that is what you are. So love is very important, and like I said, it is the creative force, and you could say in that sense, the creative power of the universe. Now I'm going to tell a couple stories here about experiences I've had of love indeed in that sense, and I'm sure some of you, maybe many of you out there, you've had similar experiences, and of course everybody has experienced love, but we'll get into the other aspects of love as love impacts or enters our physical experience, our human experience. We'll get into that in a moment. But this first experience really caught me by surprise, and that happened many years ago. I was living in a city. I was actually living overseas, and I was working with a friend. We were doing some real physical work. I think we were doing painting houses and things, and we didn't have work permits, so we were kind of under the radar, so there was a kind of pressure there. And one day, as I was at his flat, we were having some tea, he remembered that he'd left something in his truck, which was parked outside, and the truck didn't lock well. So he asked me if I would run down and get it. So I said, fine. So I walked out of his flat, down the stairs, and went down the street. And as I was going down the street, I just began to reflect on how in life, how it seems like we're always cautious, we're always afraid of something, we're always having to take precautions. Okay? So I was thinking that, I think as I got to the truck and I took out, what I was supposed to take out, some really nice tools, began to walk back. And then suddenly the thought came in, and I would say Spirit dropped the thought in. I said, what would happen? What would life be like if I could let go all fear? And at that moment, my body and mind exploded in utter bliss and love. It was so powerful that it was painful, and immediately it brought up fear, because if it would have continued for another second, I thought my body would have blown apart. So I actually cried out. It was so intense, and it stopped, you see. And of course what had happened, that's when I was a young man, I was drinking a lot, I was getting high. Although I had recognized by then, fortunately, that there was a God, there was a Creator, and that we were connected with God, and that it was important, I had not yet taken any steps in that direction. So there was no purification of the body and the mind. And an important part of the spiritual path is the purification. Okay? It's like we don't have to search and look and find that spiritual part of ourselves. That's the core of our being. That's through that we live. What we have to do is find all that is in our mind, in our hearts, right, in our body, in our energy system, that obstructs the awareness of what we truly are, that limits and contracts us. That's what we have to find. Now at that time, I had not yet started the process. And yet, through the grace of God, I was given a taste of what love is, as it truly is. As you call it, a cosmic, spiritual, and divine power. And it definitely, on that level, it is too much for the physical system, and even the mind, unless purification has taken place. So, now we'll segue to about 7-8 years later, after I had started on the spiritual path, I again had an experience of that. You can almost call that a download of that divine love, that cosmic love, that love that just comes in, just somehow, and you don't even know you're ready. Again, strangely enough, I was in an auto parts store buying brake fluid, and as I walked down the aisle, I got whacked again. It just came in a wave. But this time, because some purification had taken place, I was not overwhelmed. I mean, I was kind of overwhelmed, but I was still functional. And I was walking and there was no pain. There was just a complete bliss and love. And I managed to get my brake fluid and pay for it and stagger out the door and get behind the wheel and drive back home. And that continued for much of the day. But the point I'm making here is that after a certain purification and readiness has taken place, you see, then we can receive more and more of that love. Now the what I call the great sages, the awakened ones, the holy ones, the saints of humanity, what they have done, many of them have radiated an intense love that for those who were sensitive could feel it, and even those who weren't were affected by it. And the reason they could do it, and the reason you can do it, and I can do it, is because of a purification that has taken place, right, that we have committed to. It's because of a spiritual process of removing, of allowing to heal and dissolve the limitations on our love, on our mind, on our heart, on what we are. And as we do that, then love can come in much more strongly until it literally takes over. And again, the saints, for the most part, the saints, the holy ones in our history, they have not necessarily been perfect. I don't know if there's any perfection in human form, but they have purified themselves enough. They have committed themselves to love and to forgiveness, which is a very important part of love. That would be a good topic for a future video. And so they are able to receive it. And the way it works, let's say with the spiritual gifts we are given, or that actually we discover that we have, right? We were given them in our creation, but we can't access them. The way it works with those gifts, the way it works with love, with light, you are also light. You are love and you are light. As well as, let's see, the sense of presence, and just some of the other aspects of spiritual consciousness, peace, okay, a great serenity. The way it works with those aspects of our spiritual being and those gifts is that when we open to them, whether it's a temporary opening or whether it's permanent as we move into what's called higher consciousness, is that we then are radiating that love and that light. Because everything that is spiritual is one. And as it comes into the experience of one, of a person, of a mind, who is living in this world of separation, of duality, of opposites, love, light will just naturally to give itself, to extend to all those around us. So that's one of the wonderful things that happens as we go through our awakening process, as we go higher and higher on that spiral of awakening. I think the journey can best be described as sort of a spiral. And I also like to describe it as the vertical plane. In space and time, we're moving horizontally, but spiritually, we are moving vertically. You could describe it actually as an experience of going up, and you could even describe it as a vertical sort of movement going down deeper and deeper into the depths of our minds, into the depths of the unconscious, where the memory of God and the memory of what we are remains. And of course, that's the nice thing about the spiritual, is that it's not duality. So even though it may seem like we're going up on a spiral or we're going down on a spiral, it's the same movement and it's the same direction. So anyway, that gives you a little sense now of the cosmic power of love. And in spiritual life, and especially at this time, I think it's very, very, very important for as many of us to contact, to open to that love, and that means remove the obstacles to the awareness of love, the awareness of love's present in our mind and heart. That's what we have to do, and that's one of the things you could say that the spiritual process, the spiritual path is about. And at this time, this is something I'm emphasizing in these videos. It's real important to definitely include that aspect, love, forgiveness, and the more of us that do that, the better off, not only individually we are, but collectively we are as well. Because if there's one thing the world needs at this time, it needs love. All right, well, I think I'm going to stop now. I don't like to make these videos too long, and then we're going to continue the next video. And here I'll just mention again, I'm speaking in these videos about ideas from my latest book called Reason and Beyond, and it will be, publication date is set next spring of 2019. And these ideas as well come from two books that I have published and are available on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, and a few other places, called From the Christ Mind, Book 1 and Book 2. They're a two-book series. They are linked to A Course in Miracles, which is available just about everywhere on Amazon, many bookstores. And even, I think, on the web, there are excerpts from A Course in Miracles available for free download. So anyway, thank you very much for joining us, for joining me. God bless you. God bless us, everyone. Bye-bye.